Welcome back to the channel. This game features the first round of the Lloyds Bank Open, which was the next tournament Nigel played in, and this was played in August 1984. His opponent was David Anderton, a candidate master from England. The game started as a Nimzo Indian defence, something Nigel rarely played. Exchanging the centre, and black makes a play in the centre himself. Hits the bishop, which retreats. And here Nigel comes out of the book slightly, hitting the pawn chain on c5, also giving his bishop a square on b7. A slightly strange move from Anderton, retreating the knight. This does allow black to go to knight to e4 at the right moment. Which it usually does. And even though the pawn's doubled on the e file, it can be supported by f5, and it's quite a big thorn in white side already. Here Nigel elects to simplify the position. The idea is to get his queen into the game early. It's on a very nice square. There's opportunities to hit g2 at certain points, and also put pressure on the d4 pawn. And here white decides to bring his queen out. A bit of a mistake. It allows e5, which is a good move from Nigel to underline the pawn to chain in the centre. And now the knight's I in d3, a very nice outpost for it. Here white attacks the queen, and the queen obviously can't take the c pawn because the knight takes e4, but it has got a very good move in queen to e6. Maybe a better option would have been something like bishop to e3, defending the c pawn, even though it was going to be taken, but then gives you the opportunity to play knight f4, simplify the position some more. And even here, even if white's slightly worse, he's in a better position than he would have been with the knight to c3. Although it's still quite a nice position for black. So knight to c3 was played, and Nigel finds the right move in queen to e6. The bishop needs to move now, obviously it's still being hit by the knight on d3. And white chooses to go into d6 and trade, because obviously if queen takes d6, still knight takes e4, and white would be okay. Hits the knight, and the knight decides to come forward, which is a bit of a mistake. Should have gone back to e2 possibly, or even d1, but e2 and then e3 isn't so effective. And even though this is still quite a nice position for black, white can carry on and is not in so much trouble. But after knight to b5, e3 is a strong move. Obviously it can't be taken due to queen takes and then knight to f2, and obviously white would have to give up the rook, otherwise getting smother mated. So he can't take the pawn, so he's got to find some sort of defensive resource to come up with. He plays queen to d4, which is probably about the best he could do, but it does allow e2, and this allows black to win the exchange. So now Nigel's at an exchange up, and all he's got to do really is make sure the D pawn doesn't become a problem. He elects queen to d7, which blockades it. Maybe one of the rooks going to d8 would have been a better option. So now the game's all about trying to sort this d pawn out. And white retreats to c3, obviously aiming for e4 to defend as well. And here Nigel decides to double the rooks. I think the better option would have been to rook to d8 to put more pressure on the d pawn. Because after knight e4, maybe f5 or something along those lines. So knight to e4, and black looks to simplify further. And here Nigel plays h6, which is a normal looking move to give the king some space and avoid any back rank threats. But I think maybe queen to f5 would have been a better move. Getting the queen active, white has to defend the knight or move it, and black can sort of harass the a pawn, and now he can play h6, and he's got his queen out from d7. The rook can go behind the pawn on to d8, and I think his position would be just much more active and better. But he plays h6, queen to d5. That's another slight mistake from white. I think d4 is the right square for the queen, because this does allow Nigel to potentially play queen to e6, which he doesn't. He plays rook to d8, which I think is a mistake. I think queen to e6 would probably win the game, as white has to not trade the queens. He doesn't. If he trades the queens, I think he's in trouble after something like this, and because the d pawn's going to drop, and I think he can't afford to trade the queens, so he has to move the queen back, and then just rook to e8, potentially hitting the knight, and now he can get his queen into the position. Rook to d8 always covers the d pawn. And something like this, and I think the d pawn's going to drop, and the extra material will win the game. But he doesn't play queen e6. He plays rook to d8. Again, just putting more pressure on the d pawn. It's unclear now how he's going to. Now he decides to play queen to e6. But the difference is now the rook's on d8, so white can play queen to a5, which potentially still not a particularly good move, but it does force the rook to move. And here's probably the last mistake of the game. F3 defending the knight, but it does allow black to infiltrate on the back ranks. To check in, and now queen to d4 covers all the squares. It's covering the a7 pawn, hitting the d6 pawn. King to g3. He could have played something like queen to f5 potentially, but it's such a bad position now for white. He hasn't really got anything to cling on to. So Nigel takes the pawn, the king goes back, and obviously the queen goes back to defend the a pawn. And in this position, Anderton resigned, maybe because Nigel's quite a lot higher rated than him, and maybe he just thought he was down in position, exchange down, and his pieces, obviously his knight was not very active, and the king's very weak. So a good start for Nigel, winning the first game. A game he expected to win, I would have thought, but he still achieved it quite nicely. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the game. Until the next time, bye for now.